Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and what a wonderful afternoon it is. Welcome to Tea Time. Today, I'm drinking Kava Stress Relief Tea. I've been doing that very recently. Big fan. Helps me to chillax. But I don't even need to chillax right now because there's really cool stuff happening. David Kim and company have decided to answer the questions we've all been waiting for. The question, why? Why, David Kim, why? It echoes throughout this room in the halls of esports everywhere, and now we will know why, and can have open discussions and make progress together as a unit and explanation. Oh my god, it's good. Good things are happening. In the opening 2 paragraphs, it's made really clear that this is going to be a thing that keeps happening. This is a new thing. This is not a one-time placating the masses thing. This is a thing that will keep being a thing. Let's hope that it keeps doing that because it's really cool. Let's go point by point. The depth of micro is being addressed. First off, flying unit separation radius. We agree that when you are controlling large numbers of air units, it's difficult to do the moving shot micro. This requires a code fix, and we're currently exploring and testing something that we can add to the beta soon. Yes! Now, there's a little bit of confusion here. It may be or may not be a problem. So the moving shot micro is definitely part of the depth of micro, something that was a big part of it. One of the smaller things that was a part of it that I think is being addressed here, it's not 100% clear, is the idea that when you have like multiple oracles and you attack and you move, if one of them kills something, it freezes in place, or the one that doesn't attack freezes in place and the rest moves on. That sort of like they don't move together in a clump, you know, they don't perform sort of like the same command, the same movements for a single command, which is what you come to expect. And this doesn't have to do with separation radius. This has to do with how the engine handles separation and deceleration. It's about whether it decelerates or separates first, or if it does both at the same time. That's mostly what's going on there. That's the problem. And I think, based on language, that is the thing that they're addressing, but I'm not 100% sure. I really hope that it is. Any sort of clarification from Blizzard on this would be great. It's weird, semi-expecting responses from things now. I'm really happy about it. I'm really happy that I can begin to have a small glimmer of hope that there will be a response potentially to this. It's nuts, right? This is awesome. Let's keep this going. Making all damage points to 0 for air units. One of the reasons we don't have a default damage point of 0 is so that the timing of micro has to be mastered by players. Just making it 0 will mean microing is much easier, which is probably not the direction we want to go. I disagree with this. Not for all units, but especially for air units and particular units, and this is why. So, if the damage point on all air units gets turned to 0, what happens is the way that micro used to be done becomes a little bit easier because the unit is responsive and does the attack right away. As soon as you send the attack, bam, it happens right away. However, it opens up a lot of complexity and new micro that I think is better than the old micro because it's more visually intuitive to the spectator that something cool is happening. When a player masters the particular damage point of a unit in order to kite well with it, it's not really something that the spectator can see. However, when a player masters the moving shot with an air unit, which is really only possible in a major way if the damage point is set to 0, then there are these really cool interactions that can happen, this positioning that can happen, and you have to face the unit you're firing at first, fire at it, and then pull back for like a perfect moving shot, right? You have to be aimed at the unit. So that becomes a little bit more complex, and it's sort of like, oh, this player makes the unit look at the unit that it's shooting at, shoot, and then pull back. And that's all intentional, and that's all something that's happening. And I think that's a lot more visually intuitive to spectators, and it looks a lot more cool. And it also involves a lot more thought, and it's about positioning of the battle, where you want your units to end up. It's a lot like playing pool, playing billiards, right? You want not only to get your ball when you shoot it, you want to hit the cue ball so your ball goes in the hole when you're playing pool, right? but you also want to leave the cue ball in the right space after it's done. I feel like moving shot with air units is a lot like that, in that you want to make the shot go off, but you also want to be utilizing, okay, the shot's going to go off and I'm going to move in this direction where I want my unit to go. I think it takes a lot more forethought, planning, positional play, that kind of stuff. And I think, again, it's a lot more visually intuitive micro, and it is just as difficult as learning, if not more difficult, more nuanced, than learning the damage point for a particular unit. We generally don't make extreme changes that alter so many things at once, due to the side effects that these changes can cause. Changing every single air unit's damage point is not something we'd like to explore. Unfortunate. But we'd be open to specific air unit damage point changes if the change makes sense. Yes, okay, all right, that's something that we can work with, right? We can work with that. So, let's talk damage point. Beginning with the Protoss, and keeping in mind that damage point is one of the variables that adds or detracts from the agility of a unit. So units that are meant to be or should feel, in the minds of me, and perhaps you as well, more agile or are an agile unit ought to have a damage point of 0, especially in the air so you can do cool moving shot and stuff like that. My candidates for Protoss are the Oracle and the Phoenix. Now, the Phoenix, you might say, oh, it's already super agile and all that stuff. It already has a moving shot because it can move while it's shooting. But it also has a damage point. This, to me, it's weird, right? I feel like if it should have a damage point, it should, as soon as it's in range, bam, fire out. I think that makes the Phoenix this much more powerful unit. It's really cool, like, yeah, it's super agile, and it fits into that 0 damage point area that the Mutalisk is already in. And I feel that sort of makes sense. That might mess up, right? Talking about individual interactions, that might mess up the individual Phoenix versus Muta interaction. It might make it a little bit too strong, and maybe some other things would have to be changed as a result. But I feel like that unit, the Phoenix, is the Protoss made this super quick turning. It can shoot while it's moving. It is the embodiment of agility in the Protoss, and that having a damage point of standard of not 0 just doesn't really make much sense to me. And I feel like we can add to the character of agility for the Phoenix without making it broken, right? Other things can be changed that don't take away from the identity of agility that the Phoenix pretty much embodies. Secondly, the Oracle, it's this super quick harass unit supposed to be moving around. The other thing, the separation, deceleration bug in the game engine is being addressed, we hope. So that'll help a lot. But also just the idea that it's really weird, right? It is a very strange thing to micro. It's not a constant beam of damage. It doesn't like do 1 damage every millisecond and come through. It does like a burst of damage and a burst of damage, even though it's a laser and it's this instant attack, instant damage kind of a thing that comes through. So it makes it a little bit weird. There may be things in the animation of the Oracle and how it works to address there to make it a little bit more intuitive. But that aside, I feel like the Oracle, as well as the Phoenix, is this really mobile, agile unit, and making it more powerful in the hands of players that pay attention to it and give a lot of focus to it, I think is a great thing. I think that is something that we should be rewarding. Again, always keep in mind, lowering damage point of a unit does make it stronger. So in order to keep the current level of balance, things will have to be changed to level things out. But I think that we can do that in a way that doesn't detract from the identity of agility in the Oracle. Moving on. My candidates for Terran are the Banshee and the Viking. The Banshee is more straightforward. It's this harassed unit, even gets a speed upgrade late game. It's very clearly this unit that is meant to be a quick, agile unit. It also has the fastest turning rate in the game, tied with the Mutalisk and the Phoenix. So I think it's clear that the Banshee is meant to be this agile unit, and I think that adding a damage point of 0 to that would be phenomenal. Again, damage point of 0, bringing the damage point down makes the unit stronger. So there might have to be adjustments in other statistics to the Banshee, and I don't think that those adjustments should be made in a way that takes away from the agile nature of the Banshee. It is this quick, fast-moving, oh my god, it's harassing me. That's the kind of unit it is, and I think that it's nice. It's nice to have that. I think it would be even better with a damage point of 0. The Viking is one of those things where I think some people will be on the fence about it. Personally, I would love a 0 damage point Viking. I think it would be really cool to see the Viking doing moving shots and things like that. But it's, does it really feel like this Viking, the Viking is this super agile unit? I don't know. I don't know what the intention is behind that. I think if it were, it'd be really cool. It looks like a fighter jet, which agile, yeah, fighter jets are agile. I'm not a fighter jet expert, but I feel like the Viking ought to be a quick agile unit. Obviously, not too quick, right? Not too quick now, but I feel like that it kind of fits together pretty well with the Banshee in that sort of category. And finally, the Zerg. I want to remind everyone that I am making suggestions to air units only. I'm not addressing the ground units because Blizzard said that they're open to the air units. So I want to feed into that. I want to say, okay, you're open to changing air units. Let's talk air units, and that's why I'm focusing my discussion there. We can talk about ground units later if that's something that everyone's sort of interested in. The Mutalisk already has a damage point of 0. It's very clearly the super agile unit. It's this unit I think is a really good sort of case study for agile air units having a damage point of 0. The Mutalisk is really, really cool. It can do some cool stuff. It can turn quick. It's another one of those fast turn rate units. The Banshee, the Phoenix, and the Mutalisk are the 3 fastest turn rates in the game. And so it is a super agile unit. It has a damage point of 0. The Corruptor does not. And the Corruptor feels sort of slow, sort of clunky to me. And I think it kind of falls into the category a little bit with the Viking, where maybe it's this, more of a heavy hitter kind of an air unit. It doesn't feel quite like this, sort of agile unit. And maybe that is just the case, and Zerg is sort of fine with their air units and their damage point. But of course, I'm always interested. The main concept, the main reason I bring this up is to facilitate discussions. Let's talk about this stuff. Those are my suggestions for changes in damage point: the Viking, the Banshee, the Oracle, and the Phoenix. With the damage point of 0, a unit that is facing its target can immediately move away after being issued the attack order. With the default damage point, the player must instead time their movement to happen after the attack is performed. An example of this, which is pushed even further, is the Hellion, which has a higher than normal damage point. The unique timing required for this unit requires additional mastery, which makes it more impressive when pros are able to be so effective with them. Since the suggested goal of the change is to have more interesting micro, in this specific case, we wonder if what we currently have is more interesting micro than the proposed changes. I am 100% in with that last statement. The Hellion having the higher damage point is nuts. If you haven't seen my damage point video, we have video footage of Hellions against Zerglings when the Hellions have 0 damage point. It's stupid. It really is, right? And I think that idea of some units having a higher damage point and that's part of their identity is kind of cool. It's a little bit weird in the Hellion, right? Because it is this sort of, fast moving unit, but it kind of works out. It kind of is this unique case where it really works out and it creates this cool interaction with speedlings and Hellions and slowlings and Hellions specifically, right? It's very cool and unique. It's possible that you could bring the damage point of the Hellion down and adjust some other factors, but I definitely agree with this particular case that the Hellion is this really cool unit with a higher damage point. It's special in that way. And there are other units like that too. The Thor, for instance, has an outrageous damage point, and it makes sense. It's a giant, beastly, mechanical, I will kill you with things, and that's what it is. But the Oracle, not like that at all, right? So it's important to bring that out, that we're talking about making the agile units have a damage point of 0, and the light sort of, those kind of units have a damage point of 0, and other units that have higher damage point, like the Hellion, like the Ultralisk and the Dark Templar, and a couple of other things, those have sort of higher damage points, and that makes sense. One of the weird exceptions to this is that the Colossus, which to me is just this massive thing, right, similar to the Thor, has a lower than normal damage point. So I'd be really interested to hear about why the Colossus has a lower than normal damage point, despite the fact that it is falling into this category of massive things. Why is that a special exception? We did hear about the Lings and the Hellions, and that's really neat. But I would like to know more about the decision-making process for all of these damage points specifically. Before we move off damage point, I do want to mention one specific thing: the Hydralisk. The Hydralisk damage point is all over the place. There's a lot of inconsistencies with it. The melee damage point is different than the range damage point, which I think really screws things up. It's really inconsistent. Maybe that's its unique cool thing. I don't think that's a particularly interesting thing. Perhaps you do. But it's also higher than normal. It's not even the standard damage point. It's higher than the normal damage point. And to me, Hydralisks are this sort of light unit that should, I think, be a more agile unit than they are right now. I think sort of we're sort of stuck still on this Wings of Liberty Hydralisk, where it pretty much didn't get made. It was too immobile. It didn't have a speed upgrade in the beginning of things. It's just super reliant on creep, and that feels kind of weird. I don't understand about that, but I feel like we started with this Hydralisk, and we've been slowly sort of kind of putting things onto it in this sort of weird way, and it's kind of, all right, this is the Hydralisk we have now. I think Legacy of the Void is this opportunity to really sort of get rid of all that clunkiness and just present this clear cut, this is our Hydralisk, here you go. It's this staple unit of the Zerg. It's this super important unit of the Zerg, especially with Lurkers coming to play. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more Hydralisk, and I think that's great. So I really think damage point for the Hydralisk, at least make it the same, melee and ranged, at least that, and preferably bring the damage point down a ton. I really think it should be in the Marine Marauder area. That's sort of another weird inconsistency with damage point, right? The Marauder has a damage point of 0. The Marine has a damage point of 0.5. I think that's a animation thing, but I'm not really sure about exactly what the deal is with that. But the Marauder, I mean, it doesn't feel, it's this big, just sort of clunky. I mean, it's bio, right? So we're used to it moving fast. But when you sort of take a step back and think about exactly how it is, it does feel kind of weird to me. In any case, let's talk about it. Let's talk about damage point. I brought up a lot of particular, specific things that hopefully we can discuss, and perhaps Blizzard has a response to some of these specific things that I've mentioned. Siege Tank Immortal Turret Tracking. This is just a clear victory. This sounds like a very minor change that probably won't have a huge impact. However, because many players believe this will be of great help, so we'll test it fairly quickly internally and then put a change also in the beta. So you can expect this change to go into the beta soon. Awesome! Great. Really excited about this. A lot of people have been harping on the tracking turret. I am not very experienced with the tracking turret, and I've yet to come to the point where I fully understand the effect that it's going to have before it goes into the game. I don't think anyone ever has this 100% understanding, but with something like the economy or damage point, I've done a lot of research, I've done a lot of testing, and I feel like I can talk about it for a while and really know what's going on. With the tracking turret, I'm not in that area yet, but it's a really exciting thing to test, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing that happen. Seeing retreating siege tanks and retreating immortals being able to have this more defensive power, and what kind of a difference does it make? The dev team seems to think it won't make a big change. A lot of people, especially the Starbow people, Depth of Micro people, believe that it will make a big change. So the fact they're willing to try it out is really great. I'm really super happy about that. Community resourcing model suggestion. We also watched show matches, tried games ourselves, and we agree with the majority of you guys that it's too similar to Heart of the Swarm. But we wanted to comment again on it because it's still a topic discussed by some. Just to reiterate once more, we're not looking to make minor tweaks in this area. We're looking for a big change that will make sure that players will spread out their expansions at a much faster rate than they do in Heart of the Swarm. Currently, the resourcing model that we're testing in the beta is doing a very good job of this. First of all, this is great. I had no idea before reading this why it was that Blizzard wasn't trying out the Double Harvest mod. the one post that David Kim had made before didn't really have a full understanding. It was very clearly he misunderstood what was going on, or the dev team or the people who wrote out this article had a misunderstanding of what's going on. Perhaps the understanding is better now. That's not 100% sure here because it's not really addressed very expressly. It does seem like the development team has sort of moved on from this community model. But what I want to bring up is that the important part of the suggested economy of double harvesting is not the specific numbers, right? We're talking about design, not balance, right? All those numbers can be changed to make double harvest be more extreme or less extreme of a change. It's not about that. It's not about the numbers and specifics, which can be changed so easily. It's instead about saturation point. It's about efficient saturation point. Changing the efficient saturation point to some extent will have this effect that they're looking for. Will spread the bases out. Will incentivize, not force, but incentivize player to spread out their bases. And the main reason for that is that there's an immediate economic advantage to having more bases than your opponent, even if you're on a similar worker count. So it's about how this effect is being accomplished. It can be accomplished by getting rid of resources and therefore forcing players to expand faster. But it can also be accomplished by offering players an incentive to expand. However, the advantage of giving players an incentive to expand is that it opens up an additional strategic option that was not in existence in any sort of tangible, strong way before, which is out-expand your opponent, be aggressive, trade cost inefficiently, and plow through with sheer numbers and force and economy. Once the turtle player knows that that's an option and knows that that can be coming, will have to adapt by being more aggressive on the harass front, again, bringing more action to the game. Otherwise, without any of that, starvation play, or preventing the player from expanding, or efficiency, cost efficiency, just sort of matching them up in the cost efficiency and going head to head, are the two sort of ways to deal with that. Overall, obviously there are little scenarios and specificities, but in general, those are the two main options that we have right now. By creating the incentive to expand, we have a third option, one that is more action-packed than the other options. Because this is such a gigantic, fundamental change, it will take a long time for players to learn how to optimize and build around this particular economy. A couple show matches here and there are nothing. They're not going to give us anywhere near the data that we need to see the actual effects of this change long term. To see the effects of a change this large, we need massive amounts of data. It would pretty much need to be put into the beta to be tested. It's more or less the only way, unless we organize a massive league of people who will all play a mod 100% of the time and stop playing StarCraft 2, which would be really difficult, first of all, and cause all kinds of problems otherwise. It would split up the small player base that we already have, and etc. So in closing, my proposal is to change the efficient saturation rate per base. Maybe it goes from 16 to 14, from 16 to 12 or 10 or 8. Make that change in some way. It could be double harvest, it could be triple harvest, it could be super duper harvest. You can call it whatever you want. The means to the end is not important as the end. The end result is that the efficient saturation rate is adjusted in a way that allows players who are facing super defensive turtley players to get an advantage economically in time, an insignificant amount that allow them to trade cost inefficiently and open up that third option to deal with turtle play, creating more aggression, creating more action on the map. Ranked play in the beta. I absolutely do not care. Disruptor being too all or nothing. We agree with you guys here. The optimal case looks too strong, and when you miss with a hit, it seems like the Disruptor is killed too easily at such a high cost investment. We've been trying various things in this area for a while now, but this is what we're trying right now. Much lower radius. This is the biggest change, plus Disruptors look too underpowered right now in our testing. I think that means with the lower radius, the Disruptors are too weak. Not 100% sure what's going on with the language there. Lower cost. Faster speed when activated. Less delay before firing. So the faster speed while activating and less delay before firing is sort of, I'm assuming they're adjusting those so that you still have to activate X distance away from your target, right? That X doesn't change because it moves faster. Okay, it moves faster, but the activation, it'll delay less before firing, so it gets there on time. So that's just an adjustment. I feel like it's difficult enough to react to a disruptor as it is. I feel it's very challenging to react to a disruptor. So I feel like faster speed is not where it's at. Lower cost maybe where it's at. Maybe lower cost, lower damage, lower cost, lower radius. But those last two don't make a whole lot of sense to me. I think that the speed of the disruptor has to be at just the right place where you have that marine baneling thing going on where it's like, okay, you can split, but also the banelings are coming, so watch out. Very, very sort of interesting there. Maybe put a speed upgrade in there. I don't know. I think there are a lot of options, but I think just right out the gate, increasing the speed when activated is not going to work out particularly well. Overall, it looks like we have a decent solution for the case of a single hit ending games often. We believe the next step in this area is to test our changes that would allow players to more easily save and reuse the disruptors. This way, we can solve the issue where a miss creates a high chance for the game being over. I feel like in this particular case, saving the disruptor is about warp prisms for the most part. Like, Night End is crazy with the warp prism disruptor pulling back, picking it up thing, and it's really cool. It's in a really nice place right now, but it's a very high skill ceiling thing, right? It's a cool thing that really only happens at the top of the skill ceiling, which is a problem, right? This all or nothing thing that's being addressed is really into like the not highest echelon, the everybody else area, which is one of the challenges of trying to create a game that is easy to learn, hard to master, because if you put these things in there, then it's not too good. If you make the disruptor too weak, then it's not worth all that action and micro and all this other stuff to make sure you do the warp prism and you pick it up and you run it in, you pull it away, and you get all the timing right. All that work, all that effort has to be worth it, right? For you to do it. Otherwise, you would just do something else, of course. But I think there's probably still room for sort of like just toning it down a little bit. But not 100% sure. It's interesting. It's very, very interesting. Like I said, the main feedback that I have for this one is I don't think faster speed is the way to go, but a lot of the other options is interesting, and I think that I really would like to keep that really cool warp prism disruptor in battle play flanking stuff. There's a lot of cool stuff going on with the disruptor right now. I think it needs to be explored in the highest level, even a little bit more before we see most of its potential. We also like to comment on some topics we found interesting this week. Again, please keep in mind just because we don't mention something here, it doesn't mean we haven't read it. While it's impossible to read every single post that comes up every day, we do try our best and can tell you that we read a big majority of the things that you guys bring up. Adept micro tips video was very cool. It was a very good example of relaying more information on something new so that players in the beta can test new units. It would definitely be cool to see more tips on new units videos because we believe the faster we have the majority of beta testers ramped up with new units, the more high quality beta testing we will have going forward. I guess I'm gonna have to make a how to use these cool new units business. I guess I'll do that. I'm on it, Blizzard. Communication, bam, I'm on it. Finally, there was a post asking if players wanted battles to last much longer. Our thoughts are that the current pace feels really good, and we were happy to see that most players didn't want battles to last longer in StarCraft 2. I think that if the battles get drawn out, the game length gets drawn out, and keeping the game length short, I think is a part of the appeal of StarCraft, especially MOBAs, right? You sit down for a MOBA, it's like, okay, you're in a queue for like 15 minutes. The game is going to be 45 minutes long. Maybe it goes long and you have an hour-long game. It's like, there's a serious commitment. You play a game of StarCraft, it's like, all right, play a game of StarCraft, no big deal. I think that's one of the advantages that StarCraft has. So I think we have to be careful about lengthening the average game length of StarCraft because it's sort of giving away one of our few advantages over MOBAs in the sort of populous casual area, right? We know we have the hardcore users. It's everyone else that we're sort of concerned about, I think. In any case, In closing, holy crap, I really, really hope this keeps happening. This amount of feedback and discussion and understanding, it makes me feel good about the future of StarCraft, and I haven't felt good about the future of StarCraft in a long time. And it's not that everything is being fixed right away, it's just that we get to know what's going on. We get to know why things are happening, and we get to be, I think, a little more excited about the game that we love, which is awesome. And all that changed, really, was this communication, was this letting us know what's going on, letting us know why decisions are being made, and this sort of, just openness is really, really nice. And I'm in a really good place right now. I hope that you enjoyed my rather lengthy analysis, and I hope that we can talk about it more in the comments section. Bring out your ideas. I really, really love to discuss ideas with people and to read people's discussions of ideas. So hopefully this spurs a lot of discussion, and hopefully perhaps we keep our fingers crossed. Maybe Blizzard has perhaps a response for maybe a couple of the things that I brought up. At least the very specific damage point stuff and the economy stuff is a really big deal. The one thing that I noticed that was missing from this particular post is Protoss design, specifically force fields and warp gate. It might just be like a dead topic that they're done discussing, but I would really like to see that particular topic brought up again. I would really like for Blizzard maybe to be more open about doing extreme changes in Protoss design, like getting rid of the force field, changing the way that warp gate works in a way that allows you to buff the basic statistics, especially hit points of things like zealots, and of the gateway units. Something that we can make gateway units strong without them being too strong in an all-in. Something that restores the defender's advantage to PvP and the other Protoss matchups. My name is JaKaTaK, and as always, thank you for watching. If you have an idea for a video you would like me to do, please leave it with any questions, comments, criticism, concerns, or anything beginning with the letter C in the comment section below. And I'll see you again soon.